there's just a group of black women that definitely go into it's just like the most common thing for black women to go back into school, and then when they go back into school, they're looking just for to increase their wages, increase their capabilities of things that they can apply to and acquire. And I feel like there's also a group of black women that are taking the black men route, the white man route. And that white man route is to not even be qualified, but just to have the audacity. And I think that the women that have the audacity, the women in that group, the women in that circle, the women that don't just think that, but live that way, are having this sense of like the foundation which connects them all together would really just baffle and blow the minds of the women that continue to go back to school, continue to look for avenues that would increase their wages, that would beautify their lifestyle, because it brings more income. It may bring more income into their life. And that may or may not even be the archaic way. We're not even going to go into that discussion, because there's just some things that you can learn but not necessarily have to get into debt with. There's some things that you can do that bring in more income, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you would have to go back in and become a student in a traditional or non-traditional institution. Excuse me. But I just want to make this video for myself. Like, there are black women that are taking on the white male this phenomenon that they have that is oblivious to the typical black woman, where they just apply. Yes, they may not be qualified, but there are more black women that are still getting their degree, going back to school, and even changing careers. Just like I didn't even go to school for this. I'm now changing. I'm doing information change. I'm just now doing nursing. I'm now doing this or whichever. And usually it is to bring in more money into their pockets, into their life, and it ultimately completely influence their financial bracket, in which they have a much more expansive lifestyle. But there are women that are doing the exact same thing, and they're going about it in a different route. They now have financial income coming into their lives at a higher rate, but yet they just had the audacity to apply. And yet they may or may not be qualified, but the now double educated black woman that went that route, she may be qualified, but she ain't hired. I think that only stand true for certain career fields, because I know for a fact I had a friend of mine go back to school, something completely different. Now she's doing nursing. That's not what she went to school for when we were going to college together. But as far as like not being hired, she went into a field where she went into nursing, and so they're hiring. They're always hiring, and for some reason, just like teaching, influx of people go in, and there's always an influx of people going out. So there's just that career field in itself, not just that department or that company. That career field in itself has a revolving door. It wasn't until this information was released on with the COVID situation, where companies were putting out that they're hiring this and they're hiring that. They need a staff of 12, but people just weren't out looking for work to be in large groups, to be in places where anyone is there. They wanted to either remain at home but yet still work. But since that was revealed, then it really calmed people that were looking for work, that were applying, that were seeking to be anywhere. I'm just looking for work. Turns out that there were companies that were putting their businesses out on these platforms where people could pick and choose, but they weren't actually hiring. And they weren't actually hiring because they realized that production was still being met. Production was still being met with less people. And now that the company knows that there's less people, yet we are still meeting our numbers, the last thing that we're going to do is now hire more people and then pay out more when we can still reach our desired numbers. So since that was introduced, what other things that are out there that people that are applying to work don't realize is on the other end of the that's on the other end, that is working against their pursuit to be employed. And in my opinion, it could just be the continuum of always creating some kind of system that excludes those that could actually win, for those who win and surpass those who are making the rules. The friend of mine that went back to school and became a nurse practitioner, shout out to her, kudos to you, girl. But she was just like, yeah, they cut funding. Yeah, now it was found out that Black women are using funds, federal grants, or whatever the term is, to use this money to now sustain them academically and be able to progress from beginning all the way to end and graduate. And now because of that, they're finding themselves in the same places, in the same spaces as people who have been dominating them. And now they are elbow to elbow. Man, funding has been cut. And so because of that, now Black women are finding, man, let me tell you, a victor is a victor. Whatever's been cut, whatever other algorithm that is working behind or opposed to those who are actually trying to pursue, they're going to have to always be putting and investing their time and their energy on how to oppress and suppress. But the victor is a victor, and they will always find their way to the top. So that's where we need to put our focus on. This is what is in existence, but I'm gonna win knowing this information.